four things, I guess. One is, just from a purely observational point of view, there have been a lot of people in the music business over the last 5 or 6 years who have been trying to go for this kind of thing. I know at Warner, Russ Sider and I were talking about that kind of thing with several other people at the company, and Jeff Quatinitz has been trying to do it with the firm, the management company, for quite a while, and EMI tried to make it happen with their Robbie Williams deal, and so going to the analytic part, it's an understandable response to the fact that while for a long time record sales are what drove the way that people approach the music business at the higher levels. I mean, obviously at the sort of surviving musician level, it wasn't that important. There are plenty of country artists that haven't sold very many records for years that make an exceedingly good living because they're out on the road and they get fans to come. And Neil Diamond, Neil Diamond hadn't sold a lot of records, in a long time, even with Rick Rubin producing him. But he still gets sold out tours and makes a fortune from them. But for the upside, the part of the record business, that's the part that everybody focuses on, including the people that are looking at these tiny little parts of conglomerates or the record companies. Yeah, they want to see the big dollars, and records aren't a part of that. So you want to look at those other income streams that, by and large, the record labels have done a great deal to create. I mean, it's very hard to become somebody making a lot of money on the road unless you've had some record company put a lot of money into promoting you and building up your brand so you can cash it in. Although there are plenty of acts that, as I say, do fine on the road that have never sold a record, and no one's ever heard of them except for the fans that go see them because they're incessantly out on the road. So I understand why it's happening. Do I think the deals make sense? Honestly, I think we're so early in the process that the deals probably won't make sense, because what's happening now is that everybody wants to be the first to make those deals with the biggest artists. So when Live Nation goes and talks to Madonna, because they desperately want to be the first to make one of these things happen, they make a deal that probably, when you pencil it out, doesn't quite, it's not the deal they ideally want to make. But they'll make that deal because they want to be in that business, and they want people to remember that Live Nation was the one that did it with Madonna worldwide and made it work. So it's going to take, I think, another year or so before the deals settle down to a place and where you're talking about enough artists and enough companies doing it where the deals will make sense. Does it make sense for Madonna? Absolutely. She still has Warner Brothers working all those old records they've got in the catalog, and catalog is where Warner makes a lot of money, and the Rhino people are out there. Once she becomes a catalog artist, they work it, and that's what they do. That's the part of the company that's making the most money for them right now. If you look at return on investment. So all those things are good. Is the entity that eventually becomes the entity that makes those deals with artists going to be a Live Nation? That I'm not so sure about. For a long time I thought that the likeliest entity to end up being in that position would be a management company. Because they're the ones who have to do more of those kinds of things, and have expertise in more of those areas, and have more hands-on knowledge than a record company does, or a booking agent does, or a promoter does, or a promotion company does. I still think that's most likely to be the case. But at the beginning, the artists that this is going to make sense for are I think, going to be like Madonna, artists who aren't necessarily cutting edge on the recorded music side. And again, if anybody who's been around as long as Madonna has a shot at still being cutting edge, it's Madonna. But I think anyone look at the numbers would say that it's an uphill battle for every release now. But it's going to be an artist that's more focused on live stuff to make the money. For that, the company to be the 360 company to do it, to be a live performance, a booking agent entity, a promoter, that makes sense. But when you get to a place where everybody's making those kinds of deals, and everyone's trying. I mean, the first draft form that Warner Brothers Records sends out now includes merchandising, it includes publishing, it includes the live performance stuff. Before that starts to make sense, those companies have to develop internal expertise at doing those things to make it valid for the artists. And I think that the managers and the attorneys out there are aware of that, and they're still working hard to not give those rights up unless they get some expertise from the company, and/or they get a big advance to cover for it, but something so that they're actually getting some value for that. And I think it's still too early to see how it's going to fall out. But it wouldn't surprise me to see one of the more mid-sized management companies that has some of those mid-sized developing acts, basically advised us, you don't need to go to a major. We'll take you to the next level. Let's stay here. Let's build it organically. And once a couple of those acts break through, that will become the paradigm. And I'm thinking we're talking no more than 3 to 5 years.